Let's jump into our discussion here. I'm pleased to welcome back Rabbi Laura Rappaport, who is joining us from the Seattle area. She is a Reform rabbi, served for many years as a congregational rabbi, and now is teaching Jewish studies at the Jewish Community School. Some of us got to study with Rabbi Rappaport earlier this year when she taught about Esther around the time of Purim. So I'm going to invite you to please join me in the blessing for study. And if you feel comfortable, then I'll invite you to unmute yourself. I'm just pulling up the blessing here so that we can say the blessing together and then jump into our study session together. Please join me. Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah
Adonai
Adonai
Eloheinu melech
Eloheinu melech
asher kitshanu
haolam asher
b'mitzvotav
kitshanu b'mitzvotav
v'tzivanu
v'tzivanu
la'asot
la'asot
b'divrei
b'divrei
Torah.
Torah.
Blessed is the Eternal, whose mitzvot, whose commandments make us holy, and who commands us to immerse, to engage in words of Torah. So if I can ask everybody to please remute yourselves at this time, I'll turn things over now to Rabbi Laura Rappaport.
Hi, hello from Seattle, where it's 9 o'clock in the morning. So, hello to wherever you are in the world. So, when I heard, okay, hope through text, the way I interpreted that was, how do we find hope when we're looking around us and see a society and a world that just seems like basic human values and decency that I grew up with and took for granted just seem to be desecrated on a daily basis, and where problems just seem so big. Watching the news became kind of not something I could really do after a while. So how do we find hope? That's how I interpreted this assignment. So this is, kind of what I do when I just feel like, what's the point? Like, what can I even do about any of this? And I'm going to focus. There's kind of two ways I can go in my mind, and I'm going to focus on, well, more one than the other today. So one is kind of the zoom in approach, and one is the zoom out approach. So zooming in means that I start thinking, okay, I can't do anything about changing the entire United States or whatever other gigantic thing I'm concerned about. What I can do, however, is I do have a circle of power, so to speak. I have a community. I have people I know. I have a place I live. I have people I teach. So I do have power on that level. So one way I go is the zooming into the small, this is how I can make an impact. The other way is the zooming out, which is how I see the quote that I chose for today. I zoom out on, okay, I'm just one person, but as one person, I'm one piece of something much larger, and I can't do this by myself, but I can be part of something very large that can make significant change. So the first slide that Micah has, and there we go, is my quote. And probably most of you have heard this quote at some point or seen it. It's translated in different ways, but this is how I translate it. You are not required to complete the task, but neither are you free to desist from it. That is a quote by Rabbi Tarfon, who was an early rabbi who lived around the time when the temple was destroyed, the second temple was destroyed. His saying is kept for us to this day in a work called Pirke Avot, which is a bunch of ethical different quotes and sayings and teachings from a number of our early rabbis. And I see this as I've called this feeling empowered within an overwhelming world. So the next slide, I think one Talmudic story that I feel really speaks to what I sort of my approach of zooming in and zooming out is also a story you've probably heard, which is of Honi. In Hebrew, it's Honi Hagel, the circle man, the maker of circles, the circle drawer. So this story goes that there was no rain at all where he lived. There was a severe drought. And during this drought, Honi drew a little circle around him and then stated directly to God, Master of the universe, your children have turned their faces to me, for I am like a member of your household. I swear by your great name that I will not move from this circle until you have mercy on your children. So God kind of reluctantly, I guess, gives Honi what he wants, and he starts to send God in the story, God starts to send a tiny bit of drizzle, and Honi says, nope, this is not good enough. You got to fill the reservoirs. You have to really bring us some rain. Well, then the rain comes down in buckets, just, destructively. And Honi says, nope, that's not good either. You got to bring it with goodwill and with blessings and good rain. And then the rain is nice and normal and all is well. And afterwards, Honi gets a message from a prominent rabbi at the time that says, if you were not Honi, I would have excommunicated you. But, what can I do to you? You nag God and God fulfills your wishes like a son who nags his father and the father gives him his wish. So that's the story about Honi. And then I'll move to the immediately after that, the next slide. Honi, it goes to it doesn't matter why, the setup is the setup, but Honi is thinking about, can somebody sleep for 70 years? Doesn't matter why he's wondering about that. And he goes to sleep under a tree and he wakes. Oh, no, before he goes to sleep, he sees a very elderly man planting a carob tree. And he says, why, old man, are you planting a carob tree? Because now I don't think this is scientific, but he claims it's going to take 70 years for this tree to bear fruit. And the old man says, well, I'm planting it for my grandchildren. And Honi falls asleep, has a really good nap. He wakes up 70 years later and he sees some kid eating from the tree, and he asks who he is, and he determines, oh, that's the grandchild of the guy who I saw planting the tree. And then he goes home and he goes back to his old house of study where he always went, and people are bringing up in the house of study some of his teachings, and they're quoting him. And Honi's saying, oh, let me clarify that for you, blah, 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 blah. I am that guy. I am Honi. And they're like, sure, that's impossible. It's like, no, I really am. And finally, he comes to see he doesn't belong here. This isn't his time. This isn't his place. He feels very isolated. Like, I'm done. And he asks God, just let me rest. And he dies, as he had asked God for, that he feels, I don't want to live in a world where I'm just a total fish out of water. So it ends a little more sadly than it started. But for me, this is what this story brings up. And then I'll kind of open it for, any thoughts that you may have. I see a few lessons here. I mean, one is I can control what's in my little circle, and I can't really control what's outside of that. Now, remember, in that story, Honi isn't doing it alone. Honi is in relationship with a large being who can cause rain to happen at any given moment. And that's basically the power that's doing this, but they're working in partnership together. The second story, to me, has a sense of not all that I do is going to make sense in my lifetime, that I have to do my best and act in ways that align with my Jewish values. And maybe something good will come of it that I won't necessarily see. Another thing I see in that second part of the Honi story is Honi has a time and a place. And when he's out of that time and place, him being him, even though those words are still impacting people because he's in the future and he can see that the words are impacting people, it's not his time and place. And he realizes this isn't good. Like, I had a time and a place, it's gone. And, that's kind of it. And it is kind of interesting for me. I don't know if I'm trying to think how I can explain this. It's interesting for me because I feel like, we're all here in the place we're in the time that we live in, for whatever reason, randomness, because there's a being who wants us to be. I mean, who the heck knows? Doesn't matter. We're all here now. This is our time, and it just is. And we need to make the most of that and the best of that. We're not here in the year 2500. We're not here in the year 1200. We're here now. How can I impact, if not today's world, make an impact that will bear fruit in centuries to come? Those are my thoughts. We're always doing things in partnership. In Judaism, there's a very strong idea that we are co-partners with God. Oh, in fact, if you want to go to the next slide, the sense of, blah, blah, blah. Oh, whoops. Okay, I forgot about that slide. Okay, go to the next one. I think I said that right. Okay, here we are. Brit. In Judaism, Brit is a really important central concept, that we are in relationship. And usually Brit is about, we're in relationship with God, however you define God, whatever you see that as. However, we're not only in partnership with God to impact this world. Our partners include God or godliness, or however you think of that, our dedication to Jewish values, other people, other generations. Those are all partners with each of us as individuals to make this world be more in line with how we would ideally like to see it. So now I'll open it up. I don't have the chat open. I see Susan has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. I like this interpretation, and I zoomed in on one tiny piece. First of all, I love the saying from Pirke Avot. I use it all the time in cleaning house. But the thing that struck me was the circle. And a circle, although you can define its radius, its diameter, and all of those things, the side of a circle is really infinite. And I think maybe Honi knew that. And he sat in a circle because he defined his own circle. But if you think about concentric circles, the community grows enormously.
Okay. Yeah, and concentric circles, I think fits into the Breet, how I'm seeing it, the Breet idea that we are in partnership. We're in partnership with other circles that may include our small circle. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. I don't know who was first.
Bob was first.
Okay, Bob.
Hi, thank you very much. I wanted to focus on the idea of 70, and there are good things that happen in terms of 70 years in that story. One is that the carob tree matures and brings forth fruit, and the other is that Honi wakes up and he's kind of lost. He's beyond his time, and things don't necessarily work out for him at that point in the way that he had wished. But we don't have to go for 70 years asleep, maybe another 30 months, and things will be better if we could just sleep that long here in the United States. Maybe that's over focusing it, but I don't know. That's another way to approach things is just to try to sleep it through it.
Interesting perspective. Micah.
Yeah, well, in response to what Bob just said, I thought you made me think about the idea that this too shall pass, gam ze ya'avor, that there's something empowering and hopeful about the idea that whatever the world is like, it will not be like later. Even when things are really good, that doesn't mean they will be later. When things are really bad, doesn't mean they will be later. But what I was going to say before that was that I really appreciate the juxtaposition of these texts. That is, I love the Honi stories, and I love the Pirke Avot idea that it's not up to you to complete the work. But I never thought about putting them together before. And when you put them together, it made me realize something really interesting. That Honi, he wakes up 70 years later and he wants to just go right back to doing the work he was doing, teaching and influencing people. And he goes to the Beit
Mhm.
Midrash and he doesn't fit anymore because
Yeah.
not only are you not required to complete the work, but to some extent we can't complete the work.
Mm.
We can't know what the outcome of our work will be. We can't predict for future generations that they will have the same values or have the same needs as us. The best we can do is to try to make the world the best that we can while thinking about future generations. But then at some point we have to hand things off and we have to trust that our children, and that future generations will take the tradition we're handing them and make it their own and make the world better in a way that works for them.
Absolutely. That's a piece of it. I feel like there's a lot of levels to this to be mined out. Because even just thinking about it, yeah, of what does it mean that I'm in this time and place? And maybe there are reasons I would not want to be in this time and place, but who cares? That doesn't really matter. So how can I bring who I am to this time and place? That maybe that's the question that doesn't get us so overwhelmed that we just freeze and feel like, well, whatever, just throw up my hands. But I am in this time and place. What's needed from me right now? John?
Yeah, I had never thought of combining the two texts either, but my take is a little different. Now we're not required to complete the task, nor are we allowed to desist from it, and we have a limited time to do it. I'm only going to be here for so long.
Right. So do you feel that's a different take?
I think maybe different. slightly different. In other words, that the need to do something is immediate. I can't just wait because I'm not going to be here forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Which is, yeah, which is part of that pony story also.
Right.
Aviva.
Your your picture of Pony with the carob tree made me think of Tu B'Shvat, and he's growing his tree.
That story is often used at Tu B'Shvat. That's a common story to bring up at Tu B'Shvat.
I'm a youth liaison at our synagogue, and I've kind of had this. My daughter is the only one of our synagogue who's active in youth group, and she's graduating from grade 12. And so I've sort of had this, oh no, if she's graduating and we're not going to have any connection or anyone interested in going or to pass on the legacy or to follow on. So I had 2 Zoom meetings last week to reach out and try and immerse some of our youth or inform them with the new nifty Central Canada and get them interested with their parents and them to make them more feel comfortable or get the idea of going to some youth events. And only had one person who showed up in 2 nights.
Mm.
So I'm kind of disheartened as to what our youth, what's next in our youth, because youth group is such an amazing opportunity and experience on so many different levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sure, any of us on this call who have been involved in any way in the Jewish community have been in a similar situation where we're just banging our heads against the wall. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm trying to think of a way that ties in here. I suppose it's that every time and place is really different, and what worked so well 10 years ago maybe doesn't work now. And sometimes there needs to be a little downtime and regrouping time to figure out what's next. It won't come to us immediately. So I guess thinking more long term can maybe help us to feel less frustrated when that happens, that it's not going to happen right now, but there may be some people who are now 10 years old who are going to be doing really cool things in 5 years. And there might not be much between now and then. So I guess that would be my best thought, is that these things, sometimes we can't look at them in the short term. We have to sort of zoom out a little more and see, maybe this is just a phase of regrouping before something really cool comes to the surface. I haven't looked at the chat. I should probably open that because I see
There's a
anything I
couple-
should know. I just opened it and there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Anything I should be alerted to?
I mean, Bob posted a really beautiful poem that I'll invite
Okay.
folks to take a look at
Okay.
on your own. And they're just, yeah, I think just a lot of people resonating with with what you're teaching. Bob also said all acts with good intention have a good effect, even if we never see them, which I think is a really powerful distillation of what you've been talking about here as well.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that is the case. I mean, even just yesterday, I was thinking of my grandparents who came over from Europe, and how much they have given me such a good life. And I'm so grateful. And my grandparents have been gone for quite a while. And I wish I could tell them, but I can't. And I'm going to get all emotional. But I do. I mean, that is true. Sometimes people won't even realize what you have done to impact them in a positive way. Hopefully when we're still here, might be after we're long gone. That's absolutely true. I'm very grateful to people who are not here anymore, and I can't tell them how grateful I am.
So I have a closing thought, but Rabbi Rappaport, do you wanna close this up, and then I'll share my thought and make a final announcement.
Well, I see that you wrote. Um, Rosenzweig says all knowledge begins with our knowledge that we will die. And yeah, I mean, on the surface, that sounds like, oh, that's so grim and morbid. Um, but I'm seeing it more like we have a time and a place. Let's make the most of that. Now and here is when we are present. What can we do given that? And yeah, it doesn't have to be like a sad thought. It can be like, hey, look, I'm here. What can I do? How can
Beautiful.
I contribute?
Yeah, I want to thank Rabbi Laura Rappaport for this teaching and for putting these texts together for us in a way that really at least made me think differently about them. My closing thought, very briefly, because I know we've reached the end of our time, is that earlier this week I saw a production of Fiddler on the Roof here in Toronto in Yiddish, which if you haven't seen Fiddler in Yiddish, it is definitely worth seeing if it comes to your town. It was beautiful. And for those of you who know Fiddler, Tevye is, of course, in many ways holding his finger in the dam, trying to hold back the waters of change while everything around him is changing. And one of the symbols of that is, at least in this production that I saw, is Tevye sort of sparring with the fiddler. You would see Tevye on stage dancing with the fiddler in a way that sort of indicates that he's trying to maintain tradition, which is symbolized by this fiddler, while also trying to live in the modern world. And at the end, spoiler alert, since the show is 45 years old, at the end they have to go to America, right? And as Tevye is walking off the stage with his family, he sort of like waves at the fiddler, and the fiddler follows him off stage. I don't remember seeing that in other productions, but I thought, wow, the tradition follows him where he's going. He's carrying it with him, but he has no idea what it's going to look like in this new time and this new place. The fiddler might change shapes, and yet the fiddler travels with us. We continue to keep alive this tradition, doing our work while knowing that our work it makes sense in our time, and our job ultimately is to pass it on to someone else while putting our hand up in our own time and place. So thank you to Rabbi Rappaport for helping us all to unpack these ideas a little bit. This has been beautiful. We will meet again next week with Rabbi Emily Losben Ostrov, who will be teaching about the Eshet Chayil, a person of valor. What is it to be a person of valor in a world that needs more valor? And just a quick calendar announcement, which is that we are going to take off the month of July, but we will be back in August. So we will meet the rest of this month, and then we'll take a few weeks off and come back to continue finding hope in our texts. Thank you to Rabbi Rappaport. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom, and we will see each other next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.